Everyone knows that you really don't make pictures by yourself. And I accept this tonight on behalf of my friends. People that influence my life, influence this movie. My life is, volleyball, driving up and down when I'm home. At 69 years old, Kevin Costner, the enduring Hollywood star whose career spans epic westerns, romantic blockbusters, and television's rugged landscapes, has quietly re-entered the realm of love with a connection so grounded, so unexpectedly warm and gentle, that friends say it represents not just a new chapter, but a long-awaited homecoming for a man whose public and private lives have often danced on the edge of scrutiny and separation. Because while audiences have admired his on-screen roles for decades, from Dances with Wolves and The Bodyguard to Yellowstone, his real life has been a journey of relationships that shaped him in unexpected ways. His first marriage, begun in college and lasting 16 years, ended under the weight of infidelity, rumors, and the stretching distance caused by fame. Subsequent high-profile romances with models, heiresses, and actresses all encountered the challenge of loving the man and not just the celebrity. His second marriage to handbag designer Christine Bondardner seemed to promise stability and partnership, resulting in 3 more children, but ultimately unraveled in 2023 amid emotional strife and legal battles. And through it all, Costner carried with him a fiercely independent spirit, a man comfortable with solitude on his Colorado ranch, with music and artistic pursuits that had nothing to do with audience ratings, and always something in his eyes. Distance of being deeply known, yet self-contained, that hinted at unhealed pauses in a life lived mostly in public. And so when his friends introduced him to a woman outside the Hollywood orbit, woman grounded, creative, compassionate, uninterested in fame, but seemingly moved by Costner's authenticity, it set in motion something neither of them expected: slow, steady love, rooted in mutual respect. Quiet weekends, cooking together, horse rides at sunset, and spontaneous music making, jamming on his porch instead of on a stage. A love unannounced and unsold, yet unmistakably healing and recently witnessed by a few trusted friends and quietly documented. Costner's profile is relaxed, his smile both present and peaceful, as though he has found in this woman not rescue, not role, but refuge. After years of demanding song and dance relationships, tabloid headlines, Instagram speculation, and the relentless narrative that he was always chasing intimacy as if it were a script to be nailed. And now those closest to him say they've never seen him this calm, this centered, as if something essential has returned. The spark of a quiet joy, the laughter that comes from choice instead of chase, and the partner who meets him not in performance, but in person. And though Costner hasn't made a public statement, won't pose for glamour shots or confirm speculation in interviews, his peaceful presence in public, glimpses, and the warmth in his kid's eyes when she's around speaks volumes. Because this is the love story not of a character he's playing, but of a man finally loving outside of character, outside the cameras, outside the roles that once defined him. And for fans watching his legacy, it's a deeply satisfying turn, because in a life defined by so many loves lost or half-cleaved, Costner now seems to have found the kind of love that lasts, not because of fame or magic, but because of presence, honesty, and something like hard won that feels like the most authentic story he's ever lived. As news quietly rippled through Hollywood's grapevine that Kevin Costner, now in his late 60s and carrying decades of on-screen glories and personal heartbreak, was rediscovering love, this time with a woman outside immediate fame, circles, insiders, and observers alike began to see this not as a headline romance, but as the beginning of a softer, wiser chapter in a life marked by both achievement and emotional learning. And while Costner has never been one to seek attention off the set, those close to him say his home in Colorado, once a refuge from his first 2 high-profile marriages, and the spotlight's glare, has become a sanctuary infused with warmth again. With shared laughter while cooking, quiet musical sessions on acoustic guitar instead of film scores, days spent gardening with his eldest children, now adults themselves, in evenings where he speaks of peace as if it's new, not earned, and his children, grown, active, and protective, have responded not with skepticism, but relief, joy, even because they say they've watched him struggle through storms in past relationships, and now finally see him settled, connected, grounded, and quietly cherished, rather than endlessly questioned or scrutinized. And in Zoom calls with grandkids, his face lights up in ways fans rarely see: wrinkles turning to real smiles as he recounts parks and pancakes, instead of premieres and publicity tours. And the woman at the center of it, she hasn't sought any spotlight. She hasn't posted selfies or dropped her name into magazines. Yet, everyone who meets her, friends, family, close collaborators, speaks of a gentle intelligence, a soft strength, and a calming effect on Costner that feels both unexpected and inevitable, because after decades of being Kevin, the iconic actor, the cowboy, the president, the leader, he now seems content to simply be Kevin, the man. And Hollywood publicists, often quick to spin, are instead choosing to respect this privacy, subtly shifting his image not toward flashy premieres or late-night press cycles, but toward authenticity, artistry, and a kind of graceful aging to rare in the industry, with fashion campaigns approaching him, not for glamour shots, but for campaign themes around sustainability, mentorship, and elder creativity, while his fans, once fervently invested in plot lines and love triangles, are instead sending messages of support, relief, and encouragement for what they call his well-earned rest and real happiness. And though Costner keeps no official social media, letter writers and Instagram tribute pages fill with fan art showing him as both actor and father, hero and human, reminding the world that healing isn't silent, it's simply quieter, deeper, more lasting. And while critics may still chase stories about divorce settlements or box office successes, the real story now is softer. It's about a man who once chased love and flashbulb moments, finally letting love find him in the quiet light of shared mornings, mutual respect, and the kind of intimacy critics can't airbrush or analyze. And so, as the world watches this chapter unfold with respectful distance, what matters most isn't whether Costner will marry again or star in another blockbuster, that he's found someone who loves him when he's off camera, values him when no contract is involved, and allows him to step off the pedestal he spent a lifetime building, and that after years of affairs, dating rumors, and broken promises, feels like the most authentic role of all. Not a cowboy or a president, but a man finally known, chosen, and loved just for being himself. In the weeks following the subtle but unmistakable appearance of his new relationship, Kevin Costner and his partner began to be seen not just at private dinners, but quietly collaborating on creative ventures that blurred the boundaries between art, life, and healing. Because insiders report that the couple has started filming a small documentary about life on Costner's Colorado ranch, an unscripted look at two people building something together through music workshops, cowboy poetry nights, and open-air concerts. For local schools, blending his passions for storytelling and Western culture with her interests in sustainable gardens and mental wellness. And although no cameras have rolled for major studios, their shared project has become assembled their version of a boy meets girl, boy heals with girl, story told not in gossip magazines or tabloids, but in late nights under starlit skies, where they simply play guitar, sing old folk songs, and talk about children, nature, and second chances. And as they work, Costner is publicly reflecting for the first time on how love changes after 16. Not the dramatic wild first rush of youth, but the calm certainty of companionship that feels less like a spotlight and more like a sanctuary. And in rare interviews, he's begun to speak about partnership not as obligation, but spiritual connection. About choosing someone who sees you beyond roles, titles, or expectations. And about how his greatest career role may now be the man who stood beside her in quiet fields rather than the hero on screen, while Hollywood quietly shifts its tone and response with directors and producers who've long admired his authenticity, offering roles that reflect that new inner peace. A retired judge mentoring troubled youth, an aging rancher rediscovering hope in a sequel series, even a musician playing intimate venues instead of arenas. And fans respond not just with nostalgia, but with a sense of relief, as though they're saying, finally, he's living a story we didn't have to write for him. And in private celebrations, when children from both previous marriages meet her and tell stories of baking cookies, singing lullabies, and taking hikes together, friends describe the home as safe, warm, and real. In a way, Costner's earlier lives, though glamorous, never quite managed, which in Hollywood's image machine speaks more loudly than any red carpet, because it suggests that after all the publicity, all the heartbreaks, all the fame-driven distractions, he's found something he wasn't searching for, but deeply needed. Someone not chasing movies, money, or headlines, but simply sharing peace, partnership, and purpose. And while this story, it is far from over, and part of its beauty is how unscripted and unhurried it reminds